Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of Rift Happens. And I am extremely excited because I finally get to bust out the triple webcam overlay. I'm Justin, joined by the Mississippi crew here. We're an all SEC episode this time. We've got Lucas joining us from, I don't know if you want me to say what school you're from, but otherwise,
yeah.
Lucas, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm from Pass Christian High School down on the Gulf Coast, Mississippi. Happy to be back, and I'm happy that you get to bust out your triple webcam. You've been talking about it since like day one of Rift Happens this season. I was wondering when we were going to finally get it.
It's been geared up and ready. We've just needed another smiling face to kind of fill the gap over there, and fortunately today we do. And we've disabled the camera because Chase is here, but he's on the road. He's actually en route. Chase, where are you coming from and where are you going?
So I am coming back to St. Augustine.
Okay.
I went down there for a break and headed back home to
So the glories of
actually from Cleve High School. Yeah, so 450 miles in straight out.
I want to reassure everybody that is not what Chase's voice normally sounds like. Normally, in fact, we were doing sound check right before the episode, and our sound check method is I always ask our co-hosts to recite their ABCs, and he actually gave a pretty sultry rendition of the ABCs. He sang it.
Was beautiful.
It was. So Chase, I know you're on the road, and so your audio may come in and out a bit. So we're going to get past those little dead zones, and you'll be all clear to go. But thank you so much for joining us, and glad that you're here. I'll be the lone Alabama representative holding this down tonight. But before we get into our topics today, I guess I just want to ask how's everybody's League of Legends week gone?
Well, Elden Ring came out this week, so I've played approximately 3 games of League of Legends, and they were all last night. So I've been mostly focusing on Elden Ring and getting very frustrated. So not too much League of Legends for me this week.
Chase?
Well, I have I make sure I get an ARAM game in each day so I can get my one win of the day. This season, I switched over from support and went to top and unlock screen all at the same time. So I'm repping a new role, new hotkey controls, and Iron 3. That's pretty much where I am.
Nice.
I've also swapped. I've no longer in the bot lane. I started support a few years ago and then switched over to AD carry, and then now I'm trying my hand in the mid lane and hard stuck silver 1. Like my LP gains and losses are totally messed up. I still have a decent win rate, but man, it's been pretty brutal. But that's what League of Legends is. It's really that self-torture, I guess, putting ourselves through it.
Listen, there's a reason why when a student walks up to me and says, I've never played League of Legends, what do I need to know? The very first thing I said is, are you sure you want to do this to yourself? Mostly jokes, but it's definitely, like you said, definitely frustrating at times.
Well, we're in for quite the episode. We're going to shift things up a little bit. Up until this point, Rift Happens has been pretty, straightforward and talking mostly about just game stuff. But because our community is a collection of Scholastic esports coaches and directors, current and former, I figured that now's the time for us to dive into some of those topics that really are impacting our community, our coaching community, and the people that we talk to on a daily basis. And because of that, today we're going to be touching on forfeits as our very first topic, which is going to be a hot one. Could potentially cause some really good discussion. And then we're also going to get into talking about the top lane a little bit for any of our coaches that are unfamiliar with League of Legends and want to know a little bit more about that role and then how they can help their players that are playing in that particular role. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into Forfeits. And here lately, it does seem like there's been quite the blame game going on between tournament organizers, players, coaches, and everybody's kind of pointing the finger at like who's at fault. And if you follow esports, esports edu or Scholastic Esports on Twitter, it's been quite a storm here within the past, I'd say, 5 or 6 months. Things have been pretty crazy, and it's still a topic. It's still coming up. We have a fresh new season starting now. Spring 2022 is starting, and we've already had some really juicy drama hit the Twitterverse, and it comes courtesy of one of our own coaches.
Oh.
Out of Harlem Esports. They were being featured as the Playversus match of the week, and they were going to be live streamed. And Playversus tweeted out, "It's week 1 of our regular season. After barely missing the cut the past couple of seasons, Harlem Esports looking to put together a playoff run in League of Legends. They're going live now." And Harlem responded or commented right underneath it, "Well, actually, our first 2 weeks of opponents forfeited, so we're waiting to see if anyone will pick up a match today." Yay for starting 4-0. So not a good look for the start of the spring season.
No, not at all. And it's just, if you're involved in Scholastic Esports at all, this is just unfortunately common. We try and get, and I do appreciate PlayVS for doing this, right? We get our, especially this week, this season, we get our schedules 2 weeks in advance. So we hope that that's enough time to get our games in order. If we need to reschedule, we can reschedule. But unfortunately, as Harlem found out this week, it doesn't matter how prepared you are and how much effort you put into trying to get that exposure and applying in this case, because with PlayVS's match of the week, you have to applying to become the match of the week, winning, only to have it ripped away from you in sad fashion.
And if we look at the comment there, it did end up getting like 9 retweets from it. It's if you look at the original Playversus post, it got 4 likes, but the comment from Harlem underneath saying that it was a forfeit got 40 likes.
Yeah, I immediately had to look it up and see if that was a true ratio based off of our slide deck, because I saw the 4 likes for PlayVS and the 40 for Harlem. But if that doesn't tell you that esports edu people are on Twitter and they're always willing to pile on for something that they've been championing for or complaining about, then this will definitely do it. The announcement gets 4 likes, and then the explanation of forfeits gets 40.
Yeah, and a lot of those retweets were opportunistic Twitter voices really wanting to dogpile on to Playversus. They've been in full effect for the past few months, and it really all kind of goes back to the Forfeit Updates newsletter that they released back in October. We'll take a look at it. But, a lot of people are really quick to jump on and retweet this and say, "See, Playversus, you have forfeits. You have a forfeit problem. See," but my understanding of the situation was that the other school did confirm, "Hey, yeah, we're good to go," and I don't think they let anybody know until maybe like an hour before game time. Does anybody remember?
I don't. I just remember seeing the tweets and stuff go out. But like Lou said earlier, that it's sad and it's not uncommon that as coaches we've both been in the situation. At least I know I have, where I'm like, yeah, we're good to go. I talked to the guys at practice before, and then the day of, there's dentist appointments and haircuts, and my sister's sick, so I'm staying home. I got track tryouts. Like, everything pops up, and unfortunately, we are a sport where reschedules are a possibility, and I think we sometimes take advantage of those.
Yeah, and just to answer your question, I did go back and check the Discord receipts, and the coach for Harlem did confirm that they found out and were told, yes, the other coach, our team will be able to make it. We're good to go. and then an hour before that, they requested a reschedule.
Okay, so whose fault is it really?
So here's the
Radio
thing.
silence.
Here's the thing. I feel like the majority of people who are going to have a not angry boy take on this are going to be somewhere in the middle of this trio. And I can lay that out for all of us, right? So tournament organizers, what share do they blame, or what share of the blame do they have? We know that for the vast majority of our tournament organizers, they are for-profit companies. They want to enroll as many teams as possible so that they can make their money, continue to put that into their company, and grow. As a result, they're going to put out emails constantly saying, hey, come join us. Hey, we're having this promotion here. Hey, come do this thing. It's super easy, super fun, and your kids are going to love it. And unfortunately, especially in the esports sphere, as we've seen, that results in a lot of principals turning to a teacher and saying, hey, you like Legend of Zelda, right? Well, come hop on board. I've got esports for you. It's basically the same thing. And we find out very quickly that, no, it's not the same thing. On the flip side, we have our coaches who have been roped into this, and I hate laying this at the blame of coaches, because I understand that we're all educators in 2022. It's been a rough, 3 years now. And I don't like saying this is your fault, but at some point you have to understand that if you are running a program that comes with certain responsibilities, I have a very strict, as a coach, this has happened to me so many times, that I have a very strict no reschedule policy if I don't know we need to reschedule 7 days in advance. If you can't make it for whatever reason, then we're going to take the forfeit, right? We are going to forfeit, or I'm going to pull a sub up, which luckily I'm in a position this year where I have some subs on my team, and I feel very comfortable pulling them up and rearranging my rosters for that, which is something that I've worked on. And another key to kind of making sure you don't have to deal with these forfeits is making sure, coaches, make sure you have a sub pool, right? If you have 10 kids interested in League of Legends, that is no subs, right? If you go 2 teams, no subs on either team. You have to trust that all 5 kids can make it every single game.
Yeah, and that is something, too, that I think has tripped up a lot of coaches. Could you bring that in? Because the model with this is you can have as many teams as you have players.
Yes.
And we see that even in our community Discord, where maybe somebody has a Rocket League team and they say, I had 6 kids sign up for Rocket League, or I had 9 kids sign up for Rocket League. Yeah, we're gonna have 3 teams, and usually somebody is the voice of reason to jump in there and say, "Don't do it, please, don't do it." You've got to have those subs, but it's you don't. We were in pre-show. We were kind of talking about this a little bit. You don't see this in many other, or you don't see it at this level in other organized sports. Like, I can't imagine for high school football teams to on a Friday night be like, you know what, our quarterback's sick, and we're either going to need to forfeit or reschedule.
And I think we're actually a little lucky here. Chase and I have both either currently coach or have coached traditional sports. Is that right, Chase?
Yes, softball and soccer.
Yeah, and I currently coach volleyball. So on average, how many reschedules or forfeits do you think you had in a year?
In a year, the only time I've ever had to reschedule for either of those sports was for a rain out. Never because some event was coming up or whatnot. And I think over the 7 years of coaching those 2 sports, I've had probably 3 forfeits. And one was based on just school districts not agreeing with what our school district was doing when it came to masks. And the other one was several years ago because they just had so many kids hurt they couldn't fulfill a whole team. So instead of rescheduling, they just forfeited it.
Yeah, I think I'm in a very similar boat there. Obviously, we had COVID, which is where we had to forfeit 1 or 2 of our games. We had out-of-district games, which, if you're not aware, they're just not super important. They matter for your record, but that's pretty much it. They don't determine whether we go to playoffs or anything like that. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, my volleyball team had to the entire team, had to quarantine for 2 weeks at a time in each season. And as a result, we had to forfeit a couple games. But yeah, just like you said, we only ever reschedule or forfeit because of an act of God or nature, right? Weather or some kind of accident. I mean, we're in hurricane. We're all in a hurricane zone down here, so there's probably 1 week out of the year where we have to worry about weather rescheduling for the entirety of the coast. And other than that, it's maybe, is our field too muddy, or can we safely get to this game or not? And that's understandable. And I don't think most schools would be upset if they found out, oh, your district had a district-wide internet blackout. Okay, well, we'll try and work around that. But that's not the reschedules that so many of us are seeing, right? Yeah. I'm getting messages the day of saying, I have a dentist appointment that I forgot about. Can we reschedule? Right? And like I said earlier, as a coach, for me, I'm pulling a sub up or I'm forfeiting, right? Preferably this year, luckily I've not had to forfeit yet, and I'm going to try and keep that streak going because I have enough subs, but I'm pulling a sub up, right? I'm not rescheduling or forfeiting because you can't commit to the game. I am going to play without you, whether that means we lose or not, right? Start quarterback out or my Grand Champion 2 Rocket League player out. Guess what? We're playing without you.
Yeah. And I think maybe, I mean, is the rescheduling feature more of a harm than it is good, I guess, if we want to go down that feature, because of the nature of what we do, right? Because it's all virtual, it's all done online, and it is kind of, loosey-goosey, right? And how easy it is to just go on the TO site or just to message the other coach. You'd be like, hey, this isn't going to work. Can we just reschedule? And a lot of that is a nature also where we don't have audience people that they're not buying tickets, right? So you don't have to worry about gate or anything like that. You can live stream later. Then you have the VOD you can put out. So if TOs made rescheduling more of a hassle, would that cut out some of this and maybe see this as more of a, hey, we're going to take this more seriously. This is our match time. We play every Tuesday at 4:00. I mean, or have we kind of created a bigger problem with that?
I think we're going somewhere with that. I think the anonymity of the internet and the ability to just smash that reschedule button and hope for the best. I think that really does encourage teams to view it as we can move all of our games, right? And I know for a fact that we have I've definitely played a team or two where I've heard after the fact that they have had to reschedule every single one of their games to 30 minutes later because, unfortunately for them, the one-size-fits-all scheduling of PlayVS or whatever provider that they're using doesn't work for them. And I don't know. I think there's definitely some times, especially as a first-year esports coach last year, I think there's some times where I would have tried to put my foot down a little heavier rather than just immediately hop for that reschedule button if it wasn't there. And I knew I had to jump through hoops to get the game rescheduled. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, similar to you with trying to do the whole no reschedule. If I've ever received a reschedule request and I've never talked to the coach, it's an instant no. Yep. Like at that point, I don't care if you're not going to reach out to me and tell me why you need it. Mm-hmm. You need to justify why you can't be there the time that's the same the entire season. Mm-hmm. If it's League of Legends on Tuesday or Rocket League, Mario Kart, Splatoon on Thursday. I mean, whatever your whatever the game that you're playing, what time you have to be there. Your players know what time they have to be there, and that has to be respected. In some cases where and I think Lucas and I have had that where his team has had to go home, but mine stayed there. So it's a matter of communicating. It's like, hey, we're going to try to start before the 4:30, that 30-minute window that we have to get everything set up. Are you okay with that? They've got to go home. my guy's like, hey, we're going to start a little bit later because this team has to go home. So message your parents that we got about an extra 20 minutes of play today than we normally do. And I think the communication part is the biggest issue. If coaches communicated more, or I didn't say more, but just more effectively, then, resolutions could be made. But, to echo what's already been said, well, if that button's there and we can't do it, all right, well, we'll do it another time. It's okay. And it's just kind of, it pushes that responsibility, and in my opinion, the legitimacy of a competitive sport off to the side, and makes it a little too fickle.
Yeah. And kind of echoing something that Lucas had said earlier, I try to watch KCD Esports stream on Tuesdays out of Kentucky, and they were supposed to start at 4 just this past week, and I hop in stream and nothing's there, and I'm reaching out like, hey, what's going on? And I was told we're waiting on one of their players to get back from Walmart. Like, why are you going you have a match at 4 o'clock?
Right.
Why is your player going to Walmart? And that's not necessarily, obviously, that's not the tournament organizer's fault that the kid chose to go to Walmart. It's not necessarily the coach's fault that the kid went to Walmart. That's on the kid or the parents or whoever sent him to Walmart. It's just like, there's so many layers to this that I feel like people are using it more as an opportunity to, I guess, get more internet karma than like actually objectively looking at what the real issue is, right?
Yeah, and as far as stuff like that, as far as your student choosing to go to an appointment, or their parents, for example, forcing them to go to an appointment over esports, that's something that I feel like a lot of us have had issues with at some point or some time or another. I know Chase was messaging me the other day about how he's had to dissolve one of his teams because a couple of his kids have just chosen another sport over esports, which I feel that pain all too well, unfortunately. I definitely try and get out ahead of that stuff early on in the year. This year in the fall, I implemented two things. I implemented a player contract, and I implemented a parent-teacher meeting or a parent-coach meeting at the beginning of the year, where I had the parents come in without the students, and I gave an hour-long spiel on, one, what the program was and what we do, but two, how important this is. I showed them the money that we are spending as an organization and as a team. I do a lot of extra stuff for my team. We have extra consoles, we have extra PCs, we participate in multiple leagues, and we're participating in the Cloud9 high school training grounds this year. And all of that stuff costs money. And when I broke that down and laid it out for my parents, all of a sudden I'm getting a lot less messages of, oh, I can't make it to practice today because I have a hair appointment. Now we're on the same schedule as soccer, right? When my varsity soccer players on my Rocket League team have a game and an appointment that coincide, their parents are not canceling the game, right? They are canceling the appointment and saying, go to your game. And now we're slowly getting to that point with my team, which has really helped cut down on the amount of times where I even had to question whether we need to reschedule. Now I've just got everybody when I need them. And it's pretty much just an emergency when I don't have a player.
Chase, you mentioned you had a team that you had to end up dissolving. So you already had a full roster for a team. You're already enrolled in the season, and then obviously something comes up and your team just doesn't exist anymore.
So basically what happened is I had two Smash teams, and the JV squad, some of the players decided that they were going to give archery a try. And so one of them jumped into archery. Another one decided to do track. And then I had another player who is also part of Rocket League decide that after doing all of preseason with both of them, just said, oh, I'm just going to do Rocket League from now on. I'm not going to do two sports. So that may be a little bit on me on that last player. And then on my final one was was a student that needs to be involved with some stuff, but isn't doing what they're supposed to do academically, and I'm having to ride them too much. So they only get to play. I'm not going to put them in a sport that's varsity labeled. So they're staying focused on Mario Kart, and I took them out of that one because they can't academically they can't be dependable to be a sub, and so a team of 4 guys dwindled down to no guys. And then once I disbanded that team, the first 2 weeks were already out. So that team, one of which is playing Lucas and another one's playing a in-district school as well, both got free wins on a team that doesn't exist. So I have 2 FFs already for teams that aren't there, and for me,
I wouldn't
I'm
say
like,
that's your fault though,
well,
and I'm not going to blame the tournament organizer because something
and so
like
what
that
I did
happened.
is I reached out to the TO and was like, hey, so I have a team that I discontinued due to the students not fulfilling their obligations. So we mashed them into one team, and they compete each week to play. Is there any way that we can take them off the schedule, make sure? And they're like, well, they're already out there. They're going to go in as FFs, but on the next rotation, they'll show up as nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would think for week 2, week 1 I can get because it happens so quickly, but week 2, I think that's plenty of time to remove that and kind of shuffle it up again a little bit, and get teams a team that they can actually compete against, instead of offsetting potentially 2 weak teams get a free win and they're pushed up top, and so the second rotation they get stuck with Spidey sense players in Smash and can't do anything, and it's deflating because they haven't played.
Yeah, and I think you're kind of getting into a whole nother can of worms that we're not even going to try to tackle today, and what those forfeit wins end up doing to the rankings of those teams that are getting the forfeit wins, and how if you're in a system that's like a Swiss system, well, okay, yeah, you're 4-0. Well, now you're going to go against another team who is also 4-0, but just steamrolled the players that they did play. So it makes things definitely difficult. I do want to take a trip back to October, and what kind of really put this on everybody's radar here recently to really kind of dogpile on some of the Play Versus specifically. But they released a forfeit updates article back in October that basically laid out their numbers for forfeits, which kudos to them for doing that, because they came under, yes, they came under a lot of fire, and I could really only find one other org that actually released their numbers. But basically, the beginning of the article said, it's come to our attention that 30% of fall 2021 leagues have a 50% or less match completion rate. So 30% of all of the leagues, and those are like state leagues, regional leagues, etc., had a 50% or less completion rate, which is like, wow, that's a lot. And then spring 21 leagues, 12% had less than 50% match completion. So you would say it's they were showing that the problem has grown from spring to fall, from 12% of leagues up to 30%, completing less than half of their matches. And I didn't think there was anything particularly wrong with the update. I think they were very candid. And it says, much like traditional sports, we expect coaches to display good sportsmanship and true commitment when enrolling their program into a season. Solving this issue requires effort from us all. And that's when they pushed out or encouraged them to say, look, if you can't do it, you need to fill out this form here and withdraw your team. But they caught a lot of backlash for this. It was all retweeted and linked, and there was a lot of saying, well, you're blaming. It's not a good look for Play Versus to blame the coaches, but in some instances you can, right? But I think
definitely
it goes back to I guess kind of what Lucas was saying earlier too. these are for-profit organizations, and the more enrollment you have, the more dollars you have. So you kind of have to strike a balance there. Esports is in a come one, come all state right now, but you have Play Versus that's also pushing the varsity thing and working with the athletic associations, and then trying to put it on the same level as high school football, high school baseball, softball, soccer, whatever. But not every state is in that situation, right? Not every school is in that. So some is just looking at this as it's just an extracurricular after-school activity. So I think that part of that discussion there is important, and knowing that not every state, even though Play Versus is rolled out nationwide, not every state is actually taking esports as seriously as some others.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of this was on, what was on that first slide? October 27th, right? Well, 2 days after that, another one of our coach rivals, coaches, got some attention on Twitter. So
he who shall not be named.
He who shall not be named. On October 29th, 2 days later, we Mississippi coaches and schools received an email saying that in order to encourage people to take this more seriously and encourage coaches to manage their program better, essentially, MHSAA, which is our athletic association, would begin enforcing rules in the same way that they enforce them with traditional sports, where if you do not attend or you have to forfeit, then that is a $100 fine levied on that school, which is a lot of money if you have trusted your students who came to tryouts, enrolled 6 teams, and now only one of them is actually playing, which is all too common in esports, especially in your inaugural season when you don't have any idea what's going on. I know someone personally who started off the season with 7 teams who participated week 1 and week 2, and by the end of the season have 1 team that's consistently participating. That is a lot of forfeit money very, very, very quickly. And so I tweeted that out, as well as immediately emailed them and emailed MHSAA to say, hey, hang on a second. This is not what I've been requesting when I have messaged you about forfeits before. And that kind of popped off and got a lot of attention, with a lot of people kind of not really understanding what I meant, which is kind of the nature of Twitter when you're limited to a certain number of characters. So from that, we got a lot of hate towards Play VS, where they're like, hey, how dare they create this schedule where people are having to forfeit and then charge the schools for forfeiting, which is not happening, right? This is an MHSAA decision that they made on their own. Pretty much the only involvement of Play VS there was that they gave MHSAA the data to say 201 matches have been forfeited across 2 titles up from October 29th. So there was definitely, there's some interesting responses to how to get your forfeits in order. You can blame your coaches and say, hey, if your program isn't running appropriately, 1, you need to do it better, or 2, fill out this form and get your teams out of here. Or your athletic associations can start fining your teams for not showing up. We did get a very quick rollback on that. That was on the 29th, and I think on the 2nd of the next month, which was 3 days later. That was a Friday, and I think on that Monday, we got word that had been rolled back.
And to their credit, MHSAA they're trying to treat it the same way they would football, right? I mean, they're looking at as these are equivalent. Esports. If we're going to take this seriously, and this is going to be a varsity sport, and we're going to recognize it and sanction it, then you need to be able to take it seriously. And I don't look at it as kind of like a money grab. I think it's more of like, hey, if we let them know that they're going to have to pay this, then maybe they'll take it seriously and maybe not have to fine anybody at all. But because of the climate of everything at the time, as you said, it really got blown out of proportion, and people started attacking the wrong people, I would say. Of course, Twitterverse was all up in arms about it. The Scholastic esports space on Twitter is full of hot takes. It's pretty astounding how how far they go, and every day they're trying to take another jab at somebody, and it's I think it's funny to me too how many people are quick to criticize TOs or leagues that they've never been a part of too, and that's always been interesting to me as well. If you don't have any firsthand experience in it, then obviously you can levy your weigh your opinion on it, but we have people like joining a crusade against some TOs who have never really been a part of a league with them anyway. So I found that to be pretty interesting. But in response to all this, what I did go back and do is I dug through different leagues and found out what they do with forfeits to try to answer this issue. Playversus did update their forfeit guide. This screenshot here, I know not, if you're just listening, you're not going to be able to see it, but it was just updated this most recent week. It did say, they understand, remember, forfeits cannot be undone. It should be avoided. In lieu of forfeiting, they're strongly recommending rescheduling, so they're really pushing for the reschedule feature. And then at the very bottom it says, important, any team that misses 2 or more regular season matches will not be eligible for playoffs. So they're still... They're trying to do something there to, I guess, incentivize not forfeiting, right? And not just taking, like, obviously if you're wanting to make playoffs or make playing in the season worth it, so you can have some sort of a postseason, if you do forfeit, then no matter how great your record is after that, you're not going to be eligible for playoffs anyways. But I dug back through Twitter and found some other things too. There was this really interesting post from CSL Esports back December 1st, 2011, where they posted, "We're still waiting on schools with 2 or more forfeits to contact us back. It's holding us back from releasing," I don't know if it was like the standings or what, but I thought it was really interesting that back in 2011, this was still an issue. Like a really big issue, and here we are in 2022, and it's still a big issue. 8 years after that post, there was a response because someone called out CSL on Twitter and was mentioning forfeits, and this is a problem, you need to fix it. And this is what they said. They said, "We'd very much love for this problem to be solved. It's really tough, especially in free leagues. CSL now has 3 years of data that shows forfeit rates for our paid leagues are substantially lower than free ones. But people like free, so, shrug."
Yeah.
So then the other, I guess, attempt is, okay, well then you start charging for leagues so people have some skin in the game, right? Does that, and that should fix it. But what we see on Twitter, though, is people complain about paying for leagues because esports for everybody, right? And not everybody can pay, but... So, like, where's the middle ground in that?
Well, and then to add on to that, we also do still have, Play VS is astronomically expensive for a lot of, grassroots programs, but then we still have our forfeit problem. Mm-hmm. So even just charging isn't enough to get rid of them, even if it is lower. I can only imagine the forfeit rates if this was entirely free and there were schools that, weren't paying for it that are now. So I definitely
I don't know. We participated in a collegiate league where we had to pay $2,500 at the beginning of the school year in order to compete. And it didn't matter like how many seats it was or how many teams we had, what titles we played. It was a straight $2,500.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess it
depends.
Did you have a
lot of forfeits?
No, that's a great question. So we actually didn't have a lot of forfeits. Our schedule was set at the very beginning of the season. We knew for the next 8 weeks, we knew who our opponents were going to be. And that kind of can lead us into another conversation of, what are other things that could be like catalysts for, this forfeit. So a set schedule helps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because your opponents way ahead of time. We did have requests for rescheduling. We had very few forfeits, and it mostly boiled down to the team needed to reschedule, and we couldn't come up with a good rescheduling time that was accommodating to both of us. So it ended up having to be a forfeit. There was one team I remember that we played. They played the first 2 weeks. I think it was Call of Duty, and then they forfeited the whole rest of their season. That's a lot of money to pay, and just not play anymore.
Right.
I mean, to me, I feel that it boils down to two things. One, it has to do with the community, and it also has to do with accessibility. Just as Lucas said earlier, at the beginning of our conversation, he's played 3 games of League because a new game came out this week and it was shiny. It was fun. So he went over there and he started playing that, and for gamers themselves, there are some sessions where I'll go through 5 or 6 different games because I just don't know what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get on and I want to have some fun, and it's just too trolly for me, so I'm done. Or it's not competitive enough for me. Well, that's never an issue, but for some people, it may not be competitive enough, and so they switch off on that, or they see on Discord, hey, what's everyone else doing? Oh, everyone's over here, so let me go play that game. And so us as gamers and the community itself, we're just fickle. We're a free spirit in the sense of at the athletic world, that hey, I'm playing this game right now and it's important to me, but I also feel like this, so I'm going to go do that instead, even though I should be doing this. Where when you look at traditional sports, football season is football season. Mm-hmm. Baseball season's baseball, soccer is soccer, basketball is basketball, and so you don't see basketball players quitting basketball to go train with the football team at the high school. You just don't see that. Like, they're focused on their sport the whole time because that's where it is. And I think for me, the community aspect of taking what they're doing serious in the transition that we're trying to make over the last couple of years, from it being a hobby and a pastime to an actual sport and a focus, that now I've got to invest something of myself into this. And for a lot of people, especially, really anyone, but especially young people, taking something that they enjoy and making it super serious beyond that just enjoyment can be a little scary.
No.
And we've had a lot of stories where this is, for the players that we have, this is their first taste of organized athletics, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's in this realm, right, where it's the Wild West, and they've never, they didn't do Little League or Pee Wee football or anything like that. It's, you're part of a team now, and we're going to take this seriously. But they've grown up playing video games for 10 or 12 years, and video games aren't serious to me. I just enjoy playing and stomping on noobs. But now you're expecting me to take this seriously, and you're telling me that my grades are going to impact whether I can play on the team or not, or I have to come to school that day in order to play on Tuesday. What is this? It's just a video game. And I'm wondering, kind of like you're saying, how much of that is with the culture of gaming is, we still have that hurdle to get past.
Yeah, and even in established teams, we have that. I mean, my Smash team has been very competitive the 2 years that I've had it. And I was venting about this the other day, but I still have one of my star Smash players routinely ask me on Tuesdays, do we have practice today? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, how many times? So lately I've taken to just screenshotting his my reply to him from the previous week, which normally has a screenshot from the week before that, which normally has a screenshot from the week before that. So we're currently 6 or 7 screenshots deep into him asking me, do we have practice today? And me responding with the screenshot of me saying, we have practice every Tuesday. So it's just kind of one of those things. I don't have to worry about my volleyball girls asking me if we have practice today. They just know, and so I think it's a good example, even from an established team where I can't remember the last time I don't think I've ever forfeited a Super Smash Brothers match, except for technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Even in a team like that where all my kids are serious and really want to try hard and, love working with each other and playing against each other to get better. It's just, some of them just don't get it. It's just not a culture thing that's really been established yet.
Yeah, and in my team, our practice days have different values when it comes to competition. So like when our entire team got together, we decided what day was require team practice. Since we have so many titles, we have 1 day of team practice and a competition day, but you can come every day if you want to. Team practice is valued higher than just coming in and working on something either one-on-one with me, going over some VODs, something like that. So say, for example, you come in to practice on Monday, but you don't come Tuesday, Wednesday, and you come in to compete Thursday. Well, the players that were there Wednesday for team practice have priority over my Diamond Plat, whoever wasn't there on Wednesday, even though they showed up on Monday. And so it's teaching them, for me at least, it's teaching them the value of working together as a team and learning that process that the team is important, and you being here when you said you're going to be here is important. And just because you did it on one day doesn't mean it's the same as you did it when everyone else was here.
Yeah. I pulled a couple more from some other leagues, and this is obviously, like, I guess full disclaimer, this is not me like hurling poo at any league or trying to exalt one league over the other, but I did, we talked about what CSL had on there. NACE, for them, they're saying that they're communicate with the teams who are forfeiting, and they updated their rule book to say any team that receives 2 no-show forfeit losses during the regular season may be removed from the competition altogether. And when my collegiate team was competing through NACE, we did see that happen, and they would put them on blast on the Discord server and say, hey, just so everybody knows, this team has forfeited twice. They are gone. They're out of here, and they will forfeit the rest of the season. NECC also posted their data. They showed for the 2020-2021 season, they had a forfeit rate of 2.2%. They posted this back in August of last year. And they updated their rule book to say teams may not voluntarily forfeit a match without prior authorization from the NECC, and even with authorization are subject to further penalties for forfeiting. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Some other leagues that Conference 1, which is the Valorant League, teams are only allowed up to 2 forfeits. After their second forfeit, Conference 1 will remove the team from the league. Then we saw NJCAAE also have, you can't forfeit more than 3 games during the tournament, regardless of the reason. If they do, they get removed. And then I think this is ECAC, this one at the bottom. After forfeiting 2 games in the season, players will be disqualified and removed from the bracket and possibly any remaining matches. So it clearly it's a problem, across the board. And if it wasn't a problem, you wouldn't have to put this in your rules, right? I mean, if forfeits weren't an issue, then we don't have to worry about it. But obviously, every league is dealing with it, and it's not just the one that seems to be getting a lot of the Twitter flame right now. But I did find this interesting, and I can't speak to its efficiency, but my 2 co-hosts can. But High School Esports League, this was back March of last year. I'm sorry, 2 years ago. Forfeits are a thing of the past. We're very excited to be rolling out our new queue system just in time for the spring major. Find out how our queue system makes it easier for teams to play their weekly matches. And my understanding is you have 5 hour-long windows, and you sign in your team and you queue for a time, and it's going to match you with another team. I don't know if it's just restricted to time zone or it could be anywhere in the country. Just matches you with another team that queues up as well. I think it does solve the forfeit issue, because you don't get forfeits because you're only going to be matched against teams that are queued up. But I think it would be difficult to make a system like this work for something like varsity esports, where it's a whole state league. Do you have enough teams in your one state to do a queue system, when this queue system, my understanding is nationwide? Y'all can correct me, but I think it is, right?
It is.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Well, so I'll just speak on this one really shortly, just because I know Chase has more experience with it. I don't have a team in HSEL, but I did participate in an educators tournament that used the same queue system, because HSEL runs their league through another company called Generation Esports. And so Generation Esports is the platform that you use for matchmaking and playing and everything like that. And so we would we were given a queue time because there was only so many teams that we couldn't have 5 separate queue times. We just had one at 8 p.m. Central. We queued up. We tried to get matched with a team similar to us in skill level. They tried to base that off of prior match records. Unfortunately, in our very first game, just because there's only so many teams, we did not play a game our first week. We received a bye. So it wasn't a forfeit. We didn't get a free win, but we were told, hey, you don't get to play this week because there weren't enough teams around in the tournament to do that. I'm sure that's not as big of a problem when you have, 1,000 teams queuing up at the same time. But when there was only 27, somebody was going to draw the short end of the stick there. As far as your statement on varsity as well, completely agree. This is great for a club system where maybe you say our varsity season is in the spring, so we're going to have a club optional season, or some schools may choose to participate in this club season in the fall. You can queue up, you can get a lot of practice against teams from all over the place and a lot of different skill levels, or even very close to your skill level, where you're constantly pushing each other in a way that you may not be able to in your state league. But it's not going to be something we see widely adopted at the varsity level. In Mississippi, we don't have enough teams to do it. We would still consistently have some forfeits or have some bye weeks because a team can't make it that week, or there's just not enough for us all to consistently match up against each other. And what happens if you have a league of 27 and your top ranked team is looking for a team and your bottom ranked team is looking for a team? Do you match them up together, even though you're saying it's going to be ELO based or not? I don't know. It's also just a really hard sell for school districts. I don't know if I would be able to sell that to my principal as, hey, I don't know who we're going to play this week, but we're playing at 8.
Right. And I
Have
think,
fun.
Yeah. And I think that breaks away from the push for this to look like traditional varsity athletics, right? I have my schedule ahead of time. I can put out promotional content. We can generate some rivalry stuff. There's all that we can do if we know the schedule ahead of time. But for the queue system, they, in theory, they fixed forfeits. They did it. But I don't know that it would work for what athletic associations are kind of pushing for right now, or at least many of them kind of exploring the realm of making this more legitimate. But either way, I think it's cool for sure. I think it's an interesting way of tackling it, and I think I appreciate the conversation here in this. Before we move on from forfeits, does anybody anything else you want to add to this conversation maybe we didn't touch on?
Just to keep up with what Lucas was saying, is like, I have a middle school chess crew that runs through MSEL, which is under HSEL. And so we have the several hours we can do, but each week my crew logs in and they practice all week and they end up playing each other because we log in at 3:00 the earliest time. If we wait till 4, then we get the next time zone, and then maybe if they do it at home, can create create an issue if their parents pull them off their match in the best of 3, or if I'm not there to help with any technical issues or login type stuff, since these are 6th and 7th graders and part of the club scene. But it's just like Lucas said, like, I don't know who I'm going to play, but if you're looking for an objective, like, hey, I'm going to play, the opportunity to play, the queue system works great, because you will have the chance to play. And if you don't, then you're first serve the next time you queue up. But that's just like me going down to the Croc Center and playing basketball. I'll play a game of basketball eventually, but there's going to be a dominant team there that stays on the court the entire time. And so I'll get that one chance to lose to the best team.
So you just play pickup ball, basically.
It kind of has that feel to it a little bit. I mean, it's a great idea. Like, this is our first season with it, so I don't know how they'll end up doing like the end of season tournament that they do have. If it's based off the wins losses or your overall rankings based on your play through chess.com. It'll be real interesting to see how that stuff works. But it's also cool for those groups that, if you want to do some games like Valorant or Overwatch that our state doesn't support at the varsity level, then being able to hop into that works out pretty well.
Ian, yeah, just to echo what we were talking about earlier, in the vein of pickup ball, I kind of, so I coach volleyball, right? I coach my school ball, which has a lot more weight attached to it. That's the state championship, right? That's the, how well are you going to make it in playoffs? And your name is super recognizable. But I also coach in the off season with a travel club, and I get a team varying in skill. And I definitely think HSEL has a really good avenue for that kind of stuff, right? Where you make your team maybe of varying skill levels. This is, to me, very indicative, or not indicative, but this is much more in line with the traditional varsity, junior varsity difference in skill level, not necessarily in whether we're competing for a state championship or not, or seriousness. If you put together, because from my understanding, if you put together a really, really good team, Overwatch team, then as they continue to play, they are going to play much better and better and better competition. So if you have a top-ranked Overwatch team and you're crushing it in Mississippi, you join HSEL, you play teams from around the country, and in 4 or 5 weeks during the season, now you're playing the top-ranked team in California or the top-ranked team in Texas, and you're getting much more competitive games. I think that's going to be, if I ever do go the full HSEL route or Play VS route, it's probably going to be a mix of both. Play VS for the varsity season, and then HSEL for the hopefully more competitive or fairer game schedule.
Yeah.
So we'll see what goes from there.
Interesting. All right. Well, thank you for a thrilling discussion of forfeits and Scholastic esports. It's definitely a problem that's been around for a very, very long time. And it was interesting to see how the different leagues are approaching it. I would say, a very objective discussion as far as where fault lies. I think it does take everybody to kind of fix the problem. The tournament organizer can't fix it themselves. Coaches are going to have to step up too. Players are going to have to step up. I think there are things that TOs can do to help alleviate the problem, but ultimately it does take everybody, being responsible in that. Well, let's move on. Let's go to listener responses. I'm going to call an audible on this. I'm going to read through these form submissions while you two think of what your responses would be. Okay. To this question. You're being sent on a week-long, all-expenses-paid trip to the vacation destination of your dreams. However, you must choose one League of Legends champion to be your roommate and your +1 for every activity on the trip. Who do you choose and why? So I'm going to go ahead and go through these. So while I'm going through these, I'll let you think about what your responses would be.
Oh, boy.
So you already know that Mr. Hernandez Teaches is going to be contributing, and he did, out of San Antonio. The League of Legends champion he chose to spend time with is Viego, and the reasoning is because, quote, he's my man candy. So...
another absolutely banger submission by Hernandez Teaches. Thank you.
Next, we have Adam Eschborn, or Eshy12, out of Western New York. He says Janna, but he even threw the skin in there. He said specifically forecast Janna. He says, I burn so easily, her umbrella and healing would keep me safe from a sunburn. She can control the weather, so she can make it cloudy if I want to stay safe from the sun, or rainy if I want to make people stay inside and play games instead.
Okay.
And finally, we have Pathfinder, which some of you may recognize as one of our commentators for our last Coach Rival season. Pathfinder out of Texas. He chose... He shows misfortune, and his reasoning is 2 obvious reasons, is what he said. So
there goes the podcast.
I was gonna, we try to keep it family friendly, but I think we threw that out the window last season when we did the where people would draw their favorite champion or something. I think we that was gone. That was also from Mr. Hernandez Teaches, ruined that for us.
Yeah. For anybody that is not going to watch the video version or not watching the streamed version, I did my best just to stare disappointedly into my camera for 2 or 3 minutes. That's my response there.
All right, so Chase, I've given you time. What one champion would you take with you as your roommate and your +1?
My initial response was Braum.
Okay.
Bring him. Just no matter what he says, I'd sound smarter, and so I'd still be involved with the conversation a little bit, even if I didn't know what was going on.
Nice.
But also the dad in me is kind of missing my youngest a little bit. So I'd have to switch that over to Vex, because Vex is my youngest child's spirit champion. So I would be able to going with Vex. I would be able to hang out with my little dramatic dark makeup, everything on point, sad kid, and hopefully make her feel a little bit better about stuff.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Lucas, what do you got?
I'm going to go with 2 choices here. I've got 2 for you. Number 1, and the person I immediately thought of first, Braum.
Okay.
Now, hear me out here. Okay? 1, my reasoning here is that you want to pick somebody that is pleasing to the eyes. Braum fits that, right? I mean, you don't want to go on this all expenses paid vacation over here. Braum fits that. Also, and key point here, probably the nicest champion in League of Legends, if you've never listened to any of his voice lines. Just a genuinely good guy. I feel like we wouldn't have any problems. If anything, if I'm the one being, I don't know, a little overbearing or a little rude, he's going to go out of his way to make sure that I'm feeling okay and I'm feeling great and cater to me. So definitely for selfish reasons taking Braum. But also, my second champion that I realized probably about 5 seconds after I thought of Braum, and that really should be going with me no matter what, is Amumu. I don't think he has any other friends, so could potentially change his life for the better by taking him on this all expenses paid vacation.
So you're bringing Rubiel.
Yes, I'm bringing Rubiel.
We turn comments off on this.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
That's just a test to see if he listens. A little harken back to some of our chatter in the Discord server. I would bring Aphelios because he doesn't speak. So it'd be a quiet time. If I'm forced to bring somebody with me and I'm getting away, I don't want a lot of chatter. And so he's just gonna chill and be quiet the whole time. And I like that. Enjoy my time.
Nice. I love that answer. That's a great one too.
Sona, I guess, would be the other one because she doesn't. But she has her keyboard.
But she plays. She could play you some great music too. Really wonderful ambiance there.
Okay.
So
background music for every activity, I guess.
Every activity.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go off script here and ask, how are we doing on time for the two of you?
I'm good. I'm fixing to go through the Mobile Tunnel. So
okay.
Uh-oh.
We'll lose you for a second, Lucas.
Yeah, we'll lose you for a second. I'm good. I'm a bad coach and I canceled practice today, so I'm good.
Oh man. Okay.
I know.
We don't have school,
listen.
so.
For those of you that aren't aware, it's very difficult to run a good volleyball practice when you only have 5 people. The game requires 6. So, a little difficult.
All right. Well, I'm glad because it does give us the opportunity to get into our final topic of the day, even though forfeits took us a really long time, which I'm glad it did because we had some really good discussion there. But I did want to talk about basis of playing top lane. So this is kind of going back to what we do as a community and helping out our coaches and helping them not only learn the games that our students or players are playing, but also help them in understanding how they can best help those students out. So what I wanted to do first was kind of go over just like the basics of like top lane, just some kind of fundamentals of top lane, just to kind of understand what it is. And so I broke this down into first like 3 categories, and then we can each give our suggestions for beginners. And for those of you not aware, Lucas is I'm gonna say he's a top laner extraordinaire. We play flex queue, and he plays top lane for our team. And Chase is brand new to the role. Top lane is probably the role that I play the least. So I may not be able to give a lot of input on this from a personal perspective. So I'll be relying on these 2 gentlemen to help me out quite a bit. But Lucas, why don't you start us off with income? Like how do top laners generate money?
Well, you've got your 2 normal ways of doing it, right? And this goes across all of League of Legends. You have your minions, who you're going to farm. They're going to give you a set amount of gold every time you get them. Or you can go my personal favorite route, but which very rarely goes particularly well for me, and that is farming champions. So top lane is probably the most 1v1 centered role in the game. You are either getting a lot of attention from your jungler and the enemy jungler, or you're getting no attention and you're on an island for the entire game. And so as a result, there's a lot of emphasis placed on good farming too, right? And understanding your matchups, when you can go in for certain farm. I know I win games routinely just based off of the fact that I'm playing a champion that can push another champion off the wave. All of a sudden, I have free access to my minions. I'm good to go. I'm getting a lot of gold, and the other champion, unfortunately, cannot do that. So that's pretty much it. With the introduction of First Strike, we do get a little bit extra. What is that icon, by the way? Is that
that's the old
kleptomancy?
That's the old kleptomancy icon. I was trying to find an icon for the old, or for just gold, just gold in League of Legends. Like at the bottom of the screen, it shows how much gold you have. I was trying to find that, and I didn't, but I found the old kleptomancy icon.
Yeah.
So
nice. I thought that's what that was. So similar to kleptomancy, we've got First Strike now, which we see a lot of our ranged poke champions, or even just ranged fighters taking, which is as a rune, it allows you to, or mastery, I guess is the technical phrase now. As a mastery, if you do damage before somebody else does damage to you, you gain a little bit of gold and do a little bit of extra damage for a brief period of time. So playing somebody like Jace, right? You're going to get a lot of poke off. You're going to get a lot of extra gold from that. So those are your 2 main ways of doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And top lane income is really no different than mid lane and bot lane income. And so as we start to look at the different lanes or the different roles in League of Legends, this trend of income coming from mostly farming minions is going to be consistent across top, mid, and bot. The only way you see that really differ is when we start talking about junglers and support champions, or the support role. They're going to get their income different ways, but this is the most standard way of getting money in the top lane. We know that money is extremely important because money is how you buy your items and hit your power spikes and stay relevant moving into mid and late game. Chase, I know you said you're new to top lane, coming from support. How difficult, if at all, you may be just this insanely talented mechanical god in the top lane. How difficult was it switching from support to top, moving from a role that does not have to farm to now you do have to farm minions?
I would say extremely difficult, mainly because 90% of the champions I run into up there, I never saw in the bot lane until mid to late game when they're already insanely strong, and doing their thing. So my expectation with them at the beginning is that, like, I'm going to get destroyed type of thing. A lot of my games are limit testing. At first, I would ban the same person over and over again because I just didn't feel like dealing with that one. And now the last, couple of weeks, I've given my ban to someone else on the team just so that I have the opportunity to play against every champion that is used up there, and kind of learn the limit testing. When it comes to income, the only champion I play right now is Garen. I keep it the simple. I did a thing on the Coach Rivals League of Legends channel. Was like, I'm moving the top lane. Who do I use? And spin to win. Was pretty unanimous. But it's like learning. When it comes to it, like I don't have wave management. I don't have any of that stuff. It's just like try to last hit. But the other day I played against a Urgot, and I had 4 CS, and he was already in the 50s. Just because he kept me off of the CS. Like if I'd go in, I'd get flipped, I'd get hit a couple of times, and I got killed real quick. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stay in XP range. And when he starts roaming trying to farm champions, instead of because he can't get near me, I will catch up in CS later on. And that's what I did. So I eventually was able to get his tower before mine and caught up in CS because he would take off because I wasn't playing fun and being aggressive. And so he got bored. And that's what happens when you play against a 40-year-old in a video game. I got all the patience in the world.
That's awesome. Yeah, so income in the top lane, very straightforward. You definitely want to CS, and when you're looking at performance of top lane, usually their CS numbers and how well they're farming is something they really look at. Talking about the different types of champions that you'll see in the top lane, we mentioned ranged and melee, so you have a really big mix there, but I kind of broke it down into like 4 different things that you're really going to see in top lane, and you don't really see these in every role, but top lane does have a pretty large variety of the types of champions you can play up there. You could play a tank in the top lane, you could play a hard carry in the top lane. That's why I have the backpack.
Okay, so that I was going to ask about that. I did not know what you were going for with the backpack. I was like backpacker.
Yeah, it's here. I'm gonna open this up, hop in, and I'm gonna win this game for us. Usually you'll see a lot of top lane champions, or at least a lot of champions within top lane pools will have some sort of go button, a hard engage tool. I think things like Scion or Kled, Maokai back in the day. Usually some way of starting fights. And then we have, with the introduction of Hullbreaker, I want to throw Hullbreaker in there. Split push has always been a thing in League of Legends, but I think Hullbreaker is kind of directing more people to explore split pushing as a strategy, especially in lower elo, as opposed to just saying, "Hey, it's 15 minutes. Can we group now?" But top lane champions, usually those are the roles, at least that I see. Usually, you can pick a tank, you can pick a carry, you can pick something that's hard engaged, which could also be a tank, or you could go that whole split push thing. So they're really 4 different styles of play. There's some blending and overlapping there, but do you think I missed any there, Lucas?
I don't think so. I'm trying to think.
No, I think you got all of them. I've been killed by all of those so far, so yeah.
There you go. Nice.
That covers it.
And you're not gonna, and you're really not gonna see these. Like, you won't see a tank played in the bot lane typically as the AD carry, right? Unless it was like old Urgot before they reworked him. Sometimes you see Urgot down there. But yeah, I think there's a lot of versatility in top lane. So if you're looking to pick up the top lane, you do have kind of a wide range of different types of champions you can play. Whereas if you're going to play bot lane, you're playing typically ranged marksman, or maybe even a mage here or there. So definitely a lot of versatility there. Unique aspects of the role. Both of you touched on this earlier. So I got a picture of an island there because the stereotype around top lane is you basically have these 2 champions in the top lane just chilling for 12 to 15 minutes. It's really just the 2 of them, and then all of a sudden, whenever people start grouping up for team fights, it's like, okay, let's see what the rest of the map is doing, and you may find yourself in a situation where the enemy AD carry is 12-0-3, or the mid laner is fed, or something like that. Or you come out of it and you're like, oh, hey, wait, my team is winning without me. Okay, this is great. What an easy game, just big chilling in the top lane. But you mentioned weak side, or you mentioned junglers not coming top lane, and that's very common. So that brings in this terminology of weak side, and that is something that is kind of unique to top, because I feel like top laners typically play or typically are called on or find themselves in a situation where they have to play weak side of the map. So, Lucas, what is weak side?
So Weak side is when your team makes the decision that you are going to be receiving less resources. Typically, as a top laner, that is going to be seen in jungle proximity. So maybe we have a very skilled player mid lane, or a hyper carry mid lane and bot lane, anything really. And as a team, we've decided that, hey, listen, we're going to try and get our mid lane and our bot lane ahead, and your goal is to survive and be useful. Don't let your enemy top laner or even the enemy jungler come top and 1v1 or 2v1 you into obscurity, and become able to carry the game against the rest of our team. Typically, you're going to do that on a tank or a self-sufficient fighter. Somebody that, as far as your self-sufficient fighter, that's somebody who can 1v1 well, and potentially even 1v2, or at the very least be able to escape those ganks. And tanks are pretty much always going to be useful, just because all they need is a little bit of gold, and all of a sudden they're right back in it. They're essentially just there to provide CC and soak up damage.
Yeah, and we touched on that a little bit in last week's episode. We were talking about like the prevalence of enchanters and how they've kind of come out of nowhere, and now they're being played more in the mid lane, and even some of the top lanes might. And that kind of goes back to that whole weak side thing. Is a lot of the champions, I say a lot of champions, but a lot of the roles or champions that would be played in the top lane can still provide utility, whether or not they're getting a lot of attention or having a lot of resources funneled into them. I think like Ornn, who has the go button and is a tank, and he provides item upgrades of the ornaments to the rest of his team. So he doesn't necessarily need to get like fed. You don't have to camp his lane. You don't have to make sure that he's 5-0 by the time he leaves laning phase or anything like that. He just needs to survive. Kind of like Chase was saying he's doing. He's into an Urgot. He's not going to win the matchup. So let me just not feed, so that I can just be somewhat useful later on. And there are a lot of top lane champions that are played there where they're less reliant on getting that kind of attention, unlike what you see from mid lane and bot lane. With mid lane, you do play. There are a lot of champions there, and in the bot lane, a lot of champions there that do need resources. They do need to hit their power spikes through itemization. But these top lane champions, a lot of them have more utility than what you get in other roles, probably equivalent to like jungle utility, to still be efficient whether or not they're getting a ton of gold. Teleport I would say is another kind of unique aspect to the role. We do see TP in mid lane some, but for a lot, we mostly see teleport, I would say, top lane. Especially before they reworked it and did the Unleash teleport. Chase, do you take teleport or do you take Ignite on Garen?
So I use Ignite just because of how passive I am and not aggressive, and still not really understanding like strengths and weaknesses just yet. So I use the with Garen's all in. I use Ignite with that. I don't use teleport all that much. The main reason why I don't use teleport is, in fact, I think we played a week ago, and I kept getting mad at myself because the teleport wouldn't work. And that's when everyone told me, "Oh, you can't do that on a minion until X number of minutes." And I'm like,
"Yeah, you missed those patch notes."
Yeah, I was like, "Okay, that's wonderful." But what I have learned in lieu of that to not have to use the teleport is that if I just clear a wave and back, that usually gives me enough time to get back up there and not miss out on too much XP or CS.
Mm-hmm. And one of the big reasons why people were taking TP is because we go back to top lane being an island, but it's also so that top laner can quickly join in on the other side of the map and force a neutral objective on Dragon or gank bot lane. And with these TP changes, we've seen kind of a shift away from TP just because they can't really influence the other side of the map until the 14-minute mark. So we are starting to see a lot more Ignite anyways, and on some champions you would even take Ghost. I mean, you see like Ghost on Olaf, Darius. I'm missing somebody else. Tryndamere. I've seen some Ghost on Tryndamere, but have you seen that?
If you're really cheeky.
Yeah, Grace. Lucas, have you seen that too? Is like just kind of this gradual shift away from TP, even though it is still something that's been like so ingrained in like top lane playstyle?
Yes, and honestly, I'm not too upset about it. I routinely suggest to new top lane players, just get rid of TP. Teleport in general is only useful if you are aware of how to use it and how best to use it to influence your team and your lane. And now that it is essentially just a get back to lane faster teleport or a summoner for the first 13 minutes of the game, for 14 minutes of the game, honestly, if you're new, go Ignite. Go Ghost. Haven't seen heal too much in top lane, but go heal. Anything that's going to help you better in your 1v1 so that you are useful later on in the game is going to be better than a summoner you may not be able to use to the best of its abilities.
Very cool. All right, so before we move on to, so that's kind of like a basic overview of top lane. Obviously, it's got more mechanics in there as far as like wave management. We're not going to get into all that. That's something for another day. But this is just a basic of what top lane is, typically what the role presents. If we had somebody that maybe a coach that wanted to try out top lane, what champions would we recommend?
Well, this is going to sound very familiar, but absolutely try out Garen.
Yeah. Yeah, he's great. No mana, right? You only have to really worry about just cooldowns. You know, so if you've played other roles and mana is always an issue, you find yourself running out, then you don't have to worry about that anymore. It's great. And his passive is really good too, because if you get poked out, you just go sit in the brush and just heal it all back up, right?
Pretty much, yep.
As far as other champions, I would... Any tank is really going to be fine. When I think tanks, I think Dr. Mundo or Nasus or Scion. Somebody that the kit is relatively easy to use, and you don't really need to worry too much about dancing on that knife's edge like you would a fighter. In fact, I don't think I would suggest any carries at all for a new top lane player, right? Like, try and stay away from Kale, stay away from Yone or Auction, right? Less so because they're difficult as champions, and more so just because top lane is a difficult lane to stay alive in, honestly. If you are pushed up too far ahead and you're a squishy champion with not too many escape options, there's a very, very easy and potential possibility that you are 0-5 heading into the mid lane or heading into the mid game. And stay away from those carries. Maybe you stay alive a little while longer. We'll see.
Yeah, and top lane is a longer lane. Top lane is just like bot lane. It's a longer lane, so you do have those kind of minion mechanics and wave management mechanics that kind of come into play that you don't get much in the mid lane, because mid lane is so much shorter. And although in mid lane you could get ganked from either side of the lane, top lane, if your wave is in a really bad spot, your minions are pushed up towards the enemy tower, that's dangerous territory. As close as you get to the tower, as much as you want to put some damage on that tower and knock some plates off and get some extra gold for yourself, it really does kind of overextend yourself. You've got to have really good vision in the river, even like forward vision based on whatever jungler you're up against, because you do put yourself at risk because of how long that lane is. So yeah, I would second that. Playing tanks is really, really good, especially if you're new to the role, because you are going to find times where you're overextending. You're going to play against a much better top laner who will try to freeze the wave on you and try to starve you of CS and experience. But playing a tank, you can still be useful later on, even without all that income. I'm going to throw one out there that can be kind of played as a carry, not like a hard carry, but I like playing Rumble in the top lane still.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, if I ever get auto-filled top, I like playing Rumble. Very similar to Garen in that you have no mana. You have the heat management kind of mini game. And although like when his heat maxes out, he is silenced and he can't cast any abilities until he cools down. You have an added effect of additional damage on your auto attacks, and you auto attack more quickly. So even though you are punished from the silence, you gain like this extra kind of passive effect there when you're on cooldown. And I think he really only has 2 skill shots. Garen has 0 skill shots. But Rumble's got the Electro Harpoon and then his ultimate, which is a real like game changing ultimate. It can be really difficult to aim it sometimes, but it does a metric buttload of damage when it rolls out. So I like obviously Garen is a good one. Any tank, you mentioned a few, but I'm gonna throw Rumble out there too. I think it could mix things up, especially if you need some like AP damage in your composition. He's got a shield to kind of protect himself. He's got the skill shots, so if you want to start learning skill shots or at least practicing on champion with skill shots, you can farm safely at a distance with his E. And then if you want to get into melee range, you just turn that flame spitter on and roast him.
So coming from the low elo guy in the crew, the ones that I see the most are Mordekaiser and Urgot. Those are the two that I go against the most. And echoing the don't go squishies, as bad of a player as I am, I've gone against Kale, I've gone against Gwen, and I know how some of my higher elo friends play them. And so at first I'm in fear, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh, well, these guys are pretty easy. So, I kind of take over. But one that's been popping up a lot lately, and I don't know if it's just a troll pick or if there's some YouTube videos out there, but Nocturne on the top lane has shown up a lot more frequently in my elo. So that's basically like your bronze down to iron, maybe a sneaky silver that is queued up with somebody that's really low or something like that. But I don't know exactly if Nocturne, I usually see him in the jungle, but I don't know if Nocturne's a viable, pick for top, or is that just a YouTube fetish, like a better word?
He was more viable last season in the top lane, for sure. Even saw him in pro play. They were picking him there, but his he's has some great roams from top, especially once he unlocks his ultimate. He can shove a wave and then roam like halfway down the river and then ult mid lane to try to get the mid laner ahead. So I don't see him as much top lane now, coming from like silver gold level. I don't really see him much, but I would say he's definitely one that is kind of could get really kind of stompy and low elo for somebody that really knows how to play him.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to coaching top laners. So for our coaches, we are part of a coaches community. So I want to kind of throw some ideas out there, and these are mine, but we can kind of go wherever. But for anybody in our community that isn't super familiar with League of Legends or doesn't have a lot of experience with League of Legends, what are some of their look-fors and goals for their top laners? So, Lucas, I'll let you go first. You don't have to use my icons. Just do whatever.
No worries.
But I wasn't going to anyways. So, like, what are some things you would tell them to like help them in this way, or these are the things you need to look for, or maybe things you can encourage them to work on to try to improve?
Yeah, so our number one thing that I will be looking for, or that I will be enforcing rather, is narrow down that champion pool. There is, and we've talked about this before, especially with some of your lower ranked players, and I would say even all the way up from iron to plat, probably we have players that do this at a lot of levels. Going off of counters more than going off of comfort. And I hate to break it to you, but unfortunately, top lane is not exactly what I would call the most influential role in the game. So rather than hoping to shut another role out, I would rather my player take 3 champions and get very, very, very comfortable with them, both in their matchups with a lot of the other champions in top lane, but also in how to play them mid-game and late game. So if my champion or my player sees that Riven is getting picked in the other lane, I don't want them to lock in Darius just because they see on Mobalytics that Darius is a counter to Riven, right? I'd rather them stay and play somebody that might get bullied by Riven early, but it's a champion that they know how to transition weak side into mid lane or into mid game and into late game. So that's the number one thing. Narrow down your champion pool, because knowing how to play 3 champions well is a lot more useful for us than saying I will pick some random champion and hope that I can beat the other person in my lane. Probably outside of that, we'd work on some macro with teleport. I think that's probably the other second most influential thing that we can do. If you're taking teleport, that means that you are supposed to be having an impact all across the map. And that is difficult for people who have been playing that role for a long time, let alone somebody who may be fresh into the game or fresh into competitive esports. We played last night, right? We played our ranked flex games last night. Our very first game, I took teleport and used it suboptimally, constantly. In fact, I may have only used it 3 times in the entire game, which is not ideal for a skill that was up for much more often than that. So instructing my team and my players on where they should be going, right? What lane do you need to be going to right now? At what point in the game should you be looking for TP ganks, right? How do you instruct your team? Because my top laner is normally going to be the person who's going to be calling out where they should be going and how they should be influencing the map. If Baron is up, Dragon's not up for 6 minutes, and you have TP up, what should you be saying? And are you going to be saying the correct thing? So I think narrowing down the champion pool and instructing on the correct use of TP is probably going to be some of the more useful macro stuff, right? CSing, sure, we want to get better at CSing, but that's something that everybody gets better at, not just top laners. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that, too. I think the pool, I'm going to take it kind of maybe a different route, too, because, yes, narrow it down to 3, especially if you're brand new. But depending on how skilled your team is, like if you've got a really solid team and your players have been playing for quite a while, they feel comfortable trying to experiment and do new things because of the versatility that you can have in the top lane. It will open up and free your other players in order to play other roles. So, for example, if you have a top laner that cannot play tanks, well, then that's forcing either your jungler or your support to play tank. If your top laner doesn't play hard engage, you're forcing your jungler or your support to kind of slot in that. If your top laner only plays mages, well, then or AP damage, then you're forcing your potentially your mid laner to try to do something that's more of like an AD threat. So I would say too, when it comes to pool, like consider too, like what's a champion that they can learn or a play style that they can learn in that top lane that's going to help unlock some of your other players. If your best player on your team is your jungler and they like to play hard carry junglers, maybe something like Kha'Zix or a Kayn, something they're going to be, they want to do a lot of damage, get in, get out. They don't have those tanky stats. They don't really play a front line. But if your top laner doesn't play front lines, then again you're pigeonholing your comps. You're kind of narrowing things down. So what I would say for more experienced teams is try to expand those pools to play more things like, okay, maybe they can try a split push. Maybe they can start learning tanks or maybe learn something with some hard engage. TP macro, I think, is really, really important. And we touched on it earlier. Don't take TP just for the sake of having TP. Don't take TP because it was pushed to you from Professor or Mobalytics or what have you. Like, if you're going to take TP, one of the things that to look for as your coach is how are we using that TP, and are we leveraging that TP in the times where we can leverage that TP. So you brought the scenario earlier. Baron is up, but Dragon's not up for another 4 or 5 minutes. If my top laner has TP, I'm rotating them down to the bot lane so they can kind of tend to that wave and push it out so they can join the fight at Baron if it breaks out or they need to get there. But if you're trying to send another player without TP to the bot lane instead, then you can instantly create a numbers disadvantage for your own team on the other side of the map if they collapse on your players 5v4 and you have some on the other side of the map that can't get there very quickly. And that's something that Lucas, you mentioned too, as far as like communicating and making sure that everybody knows, like, hey, I have TP up, I'm going to go down here, and try to use TP for more than just get back to lane quickly. Especially if you die right. It's not as bad now. Like, we saw a lot of things where I would see where people would die in lane, top lane, and then instantly TP back to a minion in the middle of that lane and then die again.
Honestly, they helped out a lot of rough top laners by getting rid of that. I did it all the time, right? Ooh, let me TP back in here and try and catch somebody slipping. Boom, guess who's in the river? Enemy jungler. Now I'm dead again, and I've wasted TP. Oh man, yeah, it's
We even saw it in LCS. Poor Niles did that. He died to a jungle gank and then TP'd right back to lane onto a minion, and the jungler was still sitting in the brush, and he just got chain ganked. And then obviously CS would be the last one, making sure that they're learning how to farm efficiently. But the other thing too is like if you're playing more of a weak side top and you're into a really tough matchup, farming under tower is a skill to develop and learn, and it's different for every single champion. Every single champion has different auto attack animations, wind up speed. They all have different base stats for their attack damage and things of that nature, and so it's difficult to just pick up a brand new champion and instantly be able to farm with it efficiently. So that's something that they want to practice, maybe in practice tool, and try to farm as best they can with no items and see how that feels and all that. But obviously getting those CS numbers up so that they can be more useful and efficient. Chase, as a brand new top laner, what what would you say is something that, like, if you were to have somebody like in your ear like the whole game, what are things like are you looking for like someone to like maybe help you with or help remind you in your top lane adventures?
Yeah, so joystick is very important, and it's one is knowing when to do certain things. Like for me, as a prior support, I just stuck with my ADC. So if my ADC went someplace, I just followed. It was like, all right, we're going this way. I was the little brother. Now I've gotten older. I moved out. I have my own apartment in top lane. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do when I'm supposed to do it. I just kind of wait for the pings to go crazy and be like, my bad, because I have all chat off. So, but for me, mostly this is what I found. If you look at my op.gg Master Blaster and you look at my rank, I think I have one ranked game 1. And I think out of the 15 games I've played, 2 of them have a positive KD. Like, it's just gross because I just had no knowledge of it. So some of the changes that I made, one was map awareness. I'm not saying move your screen around and look at everything that's going on because that's too much, but at least know where the little facial dots are. If you got to make your map bigger than what everyone tells you to, then that's fine. It's the knowledge of the jungler, more so than anything else. If you know where the jungler is, then you can play your lane a little loosey goosey, right? If you don't know where the jungler is, then you don't play anywhere near the water. Recently, what I've been doing is I've been staying in the side bushes, and then I've come out the last hit and gone right back into the side bush. So any auto attacks, they can't hit me with them. So that's helped me with my trades. I used to drop vision, like run down the river and put it in the pathway and come back up, or put it in the side bush, and get picked off and all this other stuff. So I've changed it where vision is no longer for me, but the vision is actually for the jungler. So where is it most beneficial for the jungler, right? Is it at Rift? All right, I'll drop one at Rift as I path back from, the gray screen, or put it in the tri bush, see if someone's running in behind me. If I happen to go through mid lane, I'll throw it over the wall, where that side brush is, just to see if anyone's going to jump across, things like that. So I found that for me, playing for giving information or playing for the other people on my team has helped me be more aware of what's going on in the game versus staying on my island that I've been assigned by the whole team in Riot in the top lane. And I've seen better results, not necessarily that I've gotten better, but in my metric, a positive KD and not dying in the first 3 minutes is better because I'm playing a little bit smarter, playing a little more passive, and just relying on the flow of the game instead of trying to force it, because let's face it, I can't force anything but aggravation at this point.
Well, you didn't force aggravation here in episode 6 of Rip Happens. Use that as my segue into us wrapping it up. I would say that was a pretty simplistic kind of overview of top lane, and maybe give somebody, coaches that are new to the game. That was the whole idea, is help you understand a little bit more of what that role does. And maybe if you have a brand new set of players and maybe you're in this crazy journey of esports and you have 5 teenagers that came to you and say, yeah, I want to play esports, but we don't play League of Legends. Trying to decide who's going to go top or maybe who would enjoy that. Hopefully that's going to give you a little bit more insight into that. And we may come back and explore some more advanced concepts later. I know we've got some educational content coming out on Ritual Motion that's going to be coming out soon. We're going to have some coaching sessions put on there where it's more of a deep dive into the role, but this is kind of just a little bit of a taste, hope you a little bit more of an understanding of what happens there. Gentlemen, I can't thank you both enough for being here for our first, it's not a TriCast, but a triple host session of Rift Happens.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a blast. It was, it's always fun talking to you, Justin, but it was nice getting someone else to bounce ideas off and hear from. So I hope, Chase, you joined us more often. I had a blast.
Hey, the more they cancel school on Mondays, the more I can do this.
Hallelujah and amen.
And Chase, make sure you tell your wife thank you. She's been having to drive in silence this whole time and just listen to you talking to the void.
Yes. And she's been paying attention more. And every time we've gotten to state line, she's put her hand out to get in the state for me. So she's up 2-0 on me now. So it's
nice.
Yeah.
Well, guys, again, thank you so much for being here, and I hope that we can have more, good discussions about things that are like issues that are relevant to Scholastic Esports, specifically like our coaches community, and maybe just generate some positive dialogue, very objective dialogue as we kind of move forward through this space together and try to grow it as a big community. Again, for Lucas and for Chase, I'm Justin. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely.
Later. Much love.